Welcome to Ganitika.com. This is a website for mathematics lovers, learners, and leaders. In this video, we are going to deal with three-dimensional trigonometry. You will be seeing how to frame triangles inside a cuboid, cube, or a pyramid, and then how to use trigonometry in those triangles.
Now here we have a very typical example of a three-dimensional figure, which is a cube. It could be a cuboid as well. If the dimensions are different, then it becomes a cuboid. Now let's take it as a cube so that the dimensions are the same, which is the length, width, and the height are the same in this particular figure. Now, how does this help to understand three-dimensional trigonometry? Since this is a very typical example of a three-dimensional figure, let's start with this cube shape. Okay, now I'm going to draw diagonals on all the sides of this cube. You can see the diagonals coming up on every side of this cube. And why am I drawing these diagonals? These diagonals are actually the hypotenuse of the triangles formed in each of those sides, if you can see them. So if you see this, this is a diagonal of the top of the cube, and this is actually a hypotenuse of the triangle formed on this base. If you know the dimension of the base, then you can actually find the length of this diagonal, and the length of every diagonal that you have on all the sides of the cube, you can find them if you know the dimensions. Yes, so this is just Pythagoras theorem. Now, if you know these diagonals, what's the use of these diagonals of all the three sides? Actually, if you can see when I'm rotating this, if you can see there is a triangle which is formed well inside the cuboid or cube. So you can see this triangle coming up now. Can you see this this green colored triangle which is inside the cube? Yeah, this triangle is actually formed by the diagonals that you just made up from three sides of the cube. You can see that the base of the inner triangle is the diagonal of the base of the cube, and the sides of the inner triangle are the diagonals of the other two sides of the cube. So you have three sides of a triangle. This triangle is not a right angle triangle, and this triangle is formed from the diagonals of three of the sides of the cube. Now, if you can find these diagonals, how will you find these diagonals? You will use Pythagoras theorem from each sides of the cube, and then you can find the length of these diagonals. Once you know the lengths of these diagonals, you are actually knowing the length of the sides of the triangle that's well inside the cube now. Now, once we know these lengths, now we know a triangle with three sides known, right? You know the length of the three sides. So how does it help? When you have the length of three sides, you can use cosine rule, and you can find the angles of this the triangle. You can see the angle there. You can use cosine rule to find this angle, or you can use the same cosine rule to find this angle, or you can use the same cosine rule or sine rule or 180 minus the other two angles to find the third angle. So if you know the sides of the three sides of this triangle, you can find the angles, and vice versa. If you know the angles, you can find the sides. So basically you should know that there is a triangle, non-right angle triangle, formed using the diagonals of each sides of the cube. I can also show you another triangle formed in the same way. You can see that there is another triangle formed from another three sides of the same cube. So you can actually have many triangles like this. Remember, these triangles are non-right angle triangles, and you need to use either cosine rule or sine rule to use them. Let's see another important aspect of this cuboid or cube, for example. Now I can have, let me take off these angles. I can have another big diagonal. The diagonal from one point of the cuboid to exactly the opposite point of the cuboid. You can see that this diagonal red colored line goes through the cuboid. Can you see this? This is actually a diagonal which is through the cuboid. Now, what type of triangle can I form with this? So I'm going to ask you, what is the angle of this diagonal of the cube with the base of the cube. So how will you find that? So in order to find the base of the cube, you need to have this right angle triangle. So this right angle triangle gives you the angle of the diagonal of the cuboid or cube, which is the red line, with the base, with the diagonal of the base, which is same as the angle with the base. So if you are asked to find the angle of the diagonal of the cube with the base of the cube, what you need to do is you need to find the diagonal of the cube of the base of the cube, and then you need to find the diagonal of the whole cuboid, and then if you are given the height, you can find the diagonal of the cuboid using Pythagoras theorem. So you know the base diagonal, you know the height of the cuboid, and then you can find the length of this diagonal of the cuboid using Pythagoras theorem. Once you can find these three lengths, that is the height, the diagonal of the base, and the length of the actual diagonal of the cuboid, then you get a right angled triangle. And if you get this right angled triangle, you can find this angle, which is the angle with the base made by the diagonal of the cube. So you're actually finding the angle of the diagonal with the base. You can see this. So you can use SOHCAHTOA because this is a 90-degree triangle. So you can find this angle. If the angle is given, for example, you can find another side of the triangle using sine or cosine or tan ratio. So this is how you use trigonometry inside a cuboid. And according to the question, you need to be able to identify what type of triangle you are going to look into. So there are two triangles possible. First triangle is with the sides being the diagonals of the three sides. So you can see that original one before that we had. Or there is another triangle which is a 90-degree triangle, which is made by the height of the cuboid and the diagonal of the base plus the diagonal of the whole cuboid, which is from one end to the other end of the cuboid. Hope this helps. Okay, here you are having a different type of three-dimensional figure. This is a pyramid. For simplicity's sake, I'm taking the base of the pyramid to be a rectangle. You can have the base as a triangle or any other polygon, but I'm taking it as a rectangle because that's commonly used. Now, what are the types of triangles you can get in this? For example, the only place where I can draw the diagonal is the base, correct? So I'm going to draw the diagonal of the base like this. So can you see any triangle being formed here? Yes, we can. So let me make the triangle. The triangle is here, which is formed by the base of the pyramid and the two slant heights of the pyramid. You can see that. So this triangle, you can find the angles of this triangle if you know the slant height of the pyramid, which is the sloping height of the pyramid, and if you know the dimensions, the base dimensions of the pyramid, you can use Pythagoras theorem and find the diagonal. So if you know the diagonal and if you know the slant heights, you have the three sides of this inner triangle. And when you have three sides of a triangle, you can definitely use Pythagoras theorem and find this. Sorry, you can use cosine rule and not Pythagoras theorem. You cannot use Pythagoras theorem because this is not a right angle triangle. You can use cosine rule to find this angle of the triangle. So in a pyramid, you are having a triangle in this way, which is formed by the diagonal of the base and the two slant heights of the pyramid. So this is one way of making a triangle inside a pyramid. What are the other types of pyramid that you can have? Sorry, other types of triangle you can have inside this pyramid. So I said we can draw the diagonal of the base, correct? So I have drawn the diagonal of the base. With one diagonal, you can actually have one triangle, and with the other diagonal, you can of course have the other triangle. Now, what if I draw another diagonal and they meet at a point E? So this point is actually the middle of the base, midpoint of the base. So this point E bisects both the diagonals. That is, this is the middle point of CA and this is also the middle point of BED. So CE and EA are equal and BE and ED are equal. So this point cuts each of the diagonals into equal proportion. So that should be kept in mind. So what's the use of this point? From this point we can actually draw the height of the pyramid. Where is the height of the pyramid? So this is the height of the pyramid. So once you have this height of the pyramid, you can actually see that there are right angle triangles. Any height has a 90-degree with the base, right? So it is 90 degrees with the base. Therefore, you are having a right angle triangle which is going to be formed by like this. So you have a 90-degree triangle with the height of the pyramid, half of the diagonal of the base of the pyramid, and the slant height of the pyramid. So you have a right angle triangle, and of course if you have right angle triangle you can use Pythagoras theorem to find the sides. You can use SOHCAHTOA to find the angles. So you can find this angle actually using SOHCAHTOA if you know the height, if you know the other dimensions, like if you know the dimensions of the base, you can find this base length, the length of this base. If you know the length of and width of the base, you can find the diagonal of the base, and this would be half of the diagonal. So you'll have the base of this right angle triangle, and if the slant height of the pyramid is given, you have the hypotenuse of the pyramid, sorry, hypotenuse of this right angle triangle. And if you can be asked to find the height of the pyramid, which means you can use um, Pythagoras theorem with the base and the hypotenuse to find the height of the triangle that is formed inside the pyramid. So that's one way of using Pythagoras theorem if the height was asked. But if the angle was asked, you can use SOHCAHTOA, which is going to be sine of this angle is equal to opposite side over the hypotenuse, and then you can find this angle. So again, what you need to know here is there could be different types of questions, but you need to know the types of triangles that you can get into inside this pyramid as you did in your um, cube. So in the cube you also had some things like this, but it is different in a pyramid. The base could be anything. Depending upon the base, you'll have different types of triangles inside a pyramid. We'll see more questions soon.